likes to be about this far away. I like it by the side of my mouth. Daniel will just go in and start playing it, but now it is going. The other nervous thing is I don't want to do an introduction on a podcast because this is like, for you guys that never do this, it's like there's a lot going on, you know? So is this your first podcast?
It absolutely is.
How cool. Well, I'm going to do an introduction, and I am super excited to have Ryan Thompson is here with the Lion Law Firm, and I am excited as shit to have you here. I've been excited since you said you would do it. And then Ryan and I are both aviation buffs. So Ryan just flew in from Dallas, landed we're at Huber Airport right now. So dude, I'm fired up to have you here, and I really am excited to have you as a guest.
Hey man, it's awesome to be here today.
So, Ryan and I have been buddies. When did we meet?
Well, certainly probably 14 years old, maybe. We were little guys trying to ride motorcycles before we had licenses.
Well, we did. Yeah, we did ride motorcycles before we had a license. But we met years ago, kind of in high school, and hung out a little bit, and then kind of went on our way and did our own thing. And that's where I kind of want you to start picking up your story and tell us, you know, what you're doing today, how that started. And then I'm going to go back and forth. And the point of this is it's business under fire, and it's, you're obviously a badass lawyer, and we'll get into that stuff. But even more than you being a lawyer is the business behind the law firm that you have built. And so, where did you go to school? How did you decide I want to start practicing law?
Sure. So, after high school, moved up to Austin, third generation Texas Longhorn, met my wife there. And honestly, I had started out in undergrad doing all pre-med courses. My dad's a doctor. I have a bunch of uncles who are doctors, another one who's a dentist. So my mom's a nurse. I grew up in a medical family. And after 2.5 years of doing that, it kind of felt like square peg, round hole, like you're doing something that didn't fit you, didn't fit your passions.
Just no interest.
None at all. And so I was really thinking about what did I want to do, what interested me. And by the way, switching your major 2.5 years into college is a hard thing to do. So all of my electives became hardcore science classes, and I kind of had to start over with 18 months left of college. And really was thinking that I would, go on, maybe get a master's degree. At that time, I really wasn't sure that I wanted to do law school. I thought that I did, but it was, hey, let's go maybe get a master's and then see where it goes from there. And graduation night in 2000 from UT, I was supposed to wake up the next day and take the GRE, which is the exam that you would take to go get your master's degree somewhere. And my plan was do that and then law school. By that point, I'd kind of cemented in. And as we sat down for dinner, I was with my wife at the time, my girlfriend. Everybody but me was having a drink. And I thought, man, it would be really nice to have a cocktail to celebrate my graduation. Let's just go straight to law school. So blew off the GRE, started prepping for the GRE is
the prep for medical school.
No, just for any master's program.
Oh, yeah.
So like if you want to get into, just doing some sort of post-grad. But then I decided that I would not do that, take the LSAT a couple months later, and then enrolled at Baylor Law School shortly thereafter.
We have a buddy, Jason Medina.
Yes.
He's up in Lubbock. So shout out to Jason Medina, because I see him up in Lubbock and talk to him, and he's always like, have you talked to Ryan? How's Ryan?
Yes. We were 1 quarter apart at Baylor. So, I guess it starts making you feel old. That's been 4 years now.
It's insane that we graduated high school so long ago.
Yes.
And then you watch your kid just started driving or been driving for 2 years.
Yeah, no, he's turning 18 in May, and a junior in high school, just got accepted into the Naval Academy summer seminar program.
Congratulations.
He's doing some cool stuff, smarter than I ever was.
Mine is, my oldest is about to be 16. What happened?
I don't know. I still feel like I'm barely old enough sometimes to be an adult, and yet I have a child who becomes one in a couple of months. So it's still sometimes hard to fathom.
That it's nuts. So you go to Baylor, and I remember you finished, and then you finished law school. And for people that don't know or they're considering law school, how tough is that? What kind of process?
You know, it's funny because obviously everyone who goes to law school has graduated undergrad. So you're with a lot of people who have, made good grads in undergrad, did well on the LSAT, and now you're all in it together. And it's a whole new level. I still remember my very first test in law school was my Contracts 1 exam. And I asked a person a quarter before me trying to get some information. Hey, what's it like? Is it scary? Is it really hard? And he looked at me and he said, have you ever seen Saving Private Ryan? He goes, the scene where they go onto the beach and they lower the landing thing and they just get mowed down by machine gun fire? And I was like, yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. He goes, it's like that. It wasn't quite that bad, but it was a different level of intensity as compared to undergrad where, I'd be up at school every morning, 6 a.m. in the library preparing for class that day. I was probably fortunate my wife was working, and so we just kind of kept a similar schedule.
And is law school, how many years is that?
So 3.
Of just nonstop grind.
3 more years of grind and lots of reading.
When you go to law school, do they teach you anything about running a business?
If I was going to say there was anything, Baylor does a better job than a lot of law schools of trying to teach some of the practical parts of becoming a lawyer, being in court. Of course, even not being a courtroom lawyer, that might not be too useful, but there was no business of running a law firm class or anything like that. And so you come out with a degree and ready-ish to practice law, but with knowing nothing about the
zero
economics
business
of it.
sense.
None.
That's one of the things that I feel is difficult, even for lawyers. And you'll never meet a lawyer that doesn't claim to be smart. So they're not going to admit that they don't know how to do that. And the same thing with doctors and lawyers. That's one of the things that I've picked up on in years is these guys get up and, man, they're trained well at their craft, but they have no clue how to run any business at all. And so, hey, maybe they'll get better one day at that. But I feel like that's a spot where they could improve.
Completely. If I had any education to go with that, my wife was a school teacher when I was at school at Baylor. And we had bills and we had a rental home and all this. And she was making the starting teacher salary at the time, which was $29,500.
And probably writing your name on the board every day.
Right. That doesn't pay a lot of bills.
No.
And so I had to figure ways to help out to get us through. And so at the time, to help pay bills and make money, I was drop shipping poker chips from China, selling them on eBay. And then I also figured out a guy out of Dallas where I could buy refurbished margarita machines for $200 a piece, sell those on eBay, and I would sell them between $900 and $1,100 a pop. And so I could get 10 at a time in the bed of my truck.
Dang.
And I was making more money than my wife was selling margarita machines.
That's such a good idea because we come across a lot of used restaurant equipment. And if you've got a market to get it out, it'd be great. We bought that's one thing I love about this podcast is you get to hear the airplane.
Yes.
And some people it would annoy. But me, I want to hear it. And when I see it on the video, I'm like, oh, that's badass.
It is cool. Like, we're going to go do that in a minute.
Yeah. So you're slinging margarita machines to help ends meet while in law school. And when you finish law school, how does a lawyer even pick a place to go work? How do you decide whether you want to go be a trial lawyer for criminals, or you want to go work on auto accidents, or you want to work on business deals? Who helps guide that?
So it's interesting. The one thing about law school is, in some sense, it's not unlike the real business world, that those who are putting in the effort and doing well are going to rise to different levels of opportunity, because different firms will come on campus and do interviews to give clerkships that ultimately turn into jobs. but if you're not in the top quarter of your class, it's hard to even get one of the interviews.
Dang.
And so, I had studied real hard in law school and took it more seriously than I ever did in undergrad, certainly than I did in high school. So I had some opportunities out of there where some of the big, national firms were coming in
And recruiting you?
and recruiting, and you could do on-campus interviews. And then, I was fortunate to get a couple of summer clerkship options that I got to go up to Dallas and work for a summer and go practice my chops at being a young associate, so to speak. And at the end of the summer, if they liked you, you got a job offer. If not, you were in trouble.
See you later.
But yeah, for a lot of folks, and these are still bright people, right?
They're top of their class.
When you're competing against the elite, someone's number one and someone's still last. And so if you're last, a lot of those folks are going to have to go out, hang their own shingle, go to work right away. It's going to be hard to get in at a firm. And I was blessed to get into, what they would call an AmLaw 50 kind of firm, offices around the world, thousands of lawyers kind of thing. And that's kind of where I started out.
And was that working like the typical stuff that you read in a book, 80, 90, 100 hours a week and just...
when things were slow, yeah. But it was...
Just nonstop grind.
Nonstop grind. I mean, I would be up there working Saturdays, and sometimes it wasn't even that I had a bunch to do. It was so that the partners who were coming in on Saturday would see your name on the sign-in sheet in the lobby.
Son of a gun.
FaceTime, right? And so it was a lot of years of hard work doing that. And I think for me, part of what ended up becoming challenging, and not to denigrate my defense lawyer friends, but I never really felt like if I was working on a case for Exxon, and this is a fake pattern, no client privileged information, and you got them out of it for $50 million and they should have paid $75 million. Mm-hmm. You didn't get a thank you. No one was happy. There was no warm fuzzies. So a lot of it just didn't feel like you were doing good for someone where it mattered. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of at a point where I started feeling that, and that I really started thinking about, where do I want to be? Probably helping people who have been hurt and providing value. Because sometimes at Fulbright, you were defending. I did a lot of commercial litigation, businesses suing businesses, but also sometimes representing a business that had been responsible for someone who had been hurt. Mm-hmm. And I never felt good about trying to minimize what they were going to take home when they were legitimately injured and it was our client's fault. And so I wasn't always the best defense associate, because I would say we should pay fairly, and we should do it early.
Yeah.
Which didn't work well in a firm where you were supposed to be billing hours, right?
Correct. I was going to hit on this later, but we'll just hit on it now. You said something just a second ago that kind of goes back to your feelings. And I've talked to you before. And for those that don't know, Ryan is on billboards all over the place. He's got 8 offices, I believe, when I was stalking your website, and a very successful lawyer. What do you call what work you do?
I would say I'm a trial lawyer.
So trial lawyer. But the point that I want to hit on is the times that I have talked to you about a client or somebody that's in need. Every single time I talk to you, you see the emotion on your face. I hear it in your voice. I see that the families need to get taken care of. Ryan has said, dude, whatever they need, they call us. We'll take care of them. And this is coming at a time that might be the most detrimental, craziest time in a person's life. And
sure.
And profession or not, the dude just cares, and you can see it. And we'll get to the building of your business, but there is no doubt that if anything ever happened to somebody that I know, the phone number is going to be yours. And that's because of your caring and compassionate.
Man, I appreciate that. And I'll tell you a quick side story. It's because I've been there. When I was in 5th grade, I got pulled out of class because my mom had been slammed by a cement truck. She was stopped at a red light, cement truck, full load of cement. And she was in a Suburban. If she had been in a smaller car, she probably would have died. The Suburban got crushed to about in half. And I got called out of class. They said my mom was in the hospital. My dad was on the way to get me. And it was a really scary thing. I don't see her for a while. Mm-hmm. She goes into surgery, and it's had catastrophic and lasting impact on her life. And so I was fortunate to be blessed with someone who was a family friend, who was a personal injury lawyer, who helped guide my family through that. And so I know what a loving and caring hand feels like when you're in that moment. And so my goal is always for us to provide that same thing for everybody who's going through it.
Yeah, it's important, and you can see it. And you're dealing with the people that just got the phone call they never want to get.
Worst day.
On a daily basis.
Yeah.
And maybe you didn't jump into the medical field, but you got the caring, compassionate side of the medical family, which has been a good ingredient, I think, for your business. And on that point, can you tell me about a case that you remember that was, I can't even go there after you said that about your mom, like a case that is important to you. And I had that, I'm going to skip that because it's just, that's the reason you're doing what you're doing, which is kind of a light bulb moment.
Yeah. I always say if you can't believe in what you're doing, you should probably pick another profession, right? When I'm working on someone's behalf, it's not that you don't keep your professional judgment, but it is personal. You know what's happened to them. You know what they're going through, and you know what needs to happen to help them out so that they can get whatever medical treatment they need, that kind of stuff. And so you really put your heart into it. And I can tell you the first trial I lost, I cried. And I'm not embarrassed to say that. I learned a lot from it. But it is, you get emotionally invested on what your clients are going through because you know they're counting on you to deliver a good outcome.
Well, you guys are no doubt about it with your record experts at doing what you're doing right now. So, let's see. We were talking about where you had gone and your first job working, and I remember hearing things, and you would maybe post things about some of these wins that you had when you worked for another law firm. And I remember some of them were pretty significant. So can you run us through one or two of the cases without names or whatever it was, and some of the winnings that you did, because it was astounding.
So when I left, the defense firm I was at the time was called Fulbright and Jaworski. Fantastic lawyers, fantastic firms. And I learned a ton while I was there. But I knew I wanted to go be a plaintiff's lawyer. And so I took it upon myself at the time that I was just going to write and reach out to every person who I considered my hero or legend at the time in the state of Texas and just tried to get them to hire me. Cold call, email, whatever it took, repeatedly do so if they didn't respond. And I was lucky, a guy in San Antonio he had actually just relocated from Corpus Christi, a guy named Michael Watts, one of the most successful trial lawyers in Texas, if not the U.S. of all times, responded to one of my emails.
But you took it upon yourself, because nothing happens until you make a move.
Nothing.
And you took it upon yourself to start writing the letters, sending the emails. And that's the kind of stuff that I want people to know. That's the kind of shit that separates Ryan from, well, he's the lion. But that's the difference between, that's what you and I do. We send emails out. We send, and that's why we're here doing the podcast. We're just seeing what happens. We're just fishing. You're fishing, and this guy, Mr. Watts, picks you up. And what happens?
Well, the first time he responds, and then I write back, and I get ignored. And not ignored, he's a busy guy. And so I'm not afraid to reply again.
Right.
So I do. And he ultimately writes me back and talks about that we should meet, and then again goes kind of cold. Well, I tell a little bit of a fib. I was going to see my parents for the weekend in San Antonio where he lived. I was practicing in Dallas at the time. And so I wrote Michael again and told him I would be in town for an entire week and that I would love to meet with him while I was there. This, that, and the other. My wife and I are driving to the airport. I haven't heard back yet. And I get a reply email for him that, hey, I'm in the office tonight preparing for trial on Monday. Why don't you drop by when you land? Well, this is the summer of 2009. I've brought no clothes. I'm wearing shorts and a T-shirt and tennis shoes. And I told him, I said, great, I'll come by the office, but just so you know, I'm already on the way. I don't have any clothes. And he said, hey, I'm in a baseball cap and shorts preparing for trial. Just come on by the office. And so I show up, we're both dressed as comfortably as we are today, probably even a little more so. And we talked for about an hour and a half. And then he said, hey, if you'd like to come here, I'll give you a job. And so I'm thinking, this is fantastic. Of course, at the time, at the big defense firm I was at, I had a 6-figure salary. I had all health insurance, all these comfortable things.
Right.
And my wife was pregnant at the time with our second child. And Michael offered me 0 salary, no benefits, but he told me if I was worth a shit, it would probably be a good thing for me to do. And I knew he was probably right. And so I went home and talked to my wife, and then
she probably loved the idea.
as we're thinking about a baby that's going to be coming a few months later, and I tell her about the offer that I just got, which would be eat what you kill and live off of the meager savings that you've accumulated over your first 6.5 years of practice, and see what you can do. And she said, do you think it's the right call? And I said, I really do. And she said, then let's do it. She didn't have a friend in San Antonio, knew no one, but was ready to come down with me and make a roll for it. So we moved while she was pregnant for no money and no benefits. It was the smartest and best job offer I ever took.
Isn't that crazy? Crazy.
And so to get back to your question about then, what was the biggest case that you ever did? Well, I came in and started working with Michael. Over the first 2.5 years I was there, ended up blowing through all the money that I had saved. We had nothing. It was one of those things when you leave your house, you turn the lights off, you turn the AC up, save a buck wherever you can. But I was working like hell on big cases.
And you're working on these cases that are going to take a year or two. You can see that your client's correct. It looks like these are going to go off. We're going to have a payday. It's a year out.
You were hoping, at least, right?
Yeah.
Because you're investing real time. And at the time, I'm also trying to drum up business. Like I was sharing a suite at AT&T Center with Michael and another lawyer with money that I didn't have, and filling it every night with 15 referral lawyers trying to get people to send me business. So you have some little onesie-twosies along the way that help keep your debt load down, but working a couple of big picture kind of cases. And so by the time that I had that first money come through, I started with him in the late summer of 2009, and it wasn't until the summer of 2012 at the time that I had my first kind of material thing happen. And I was $400,000 in debt. I had spent 100 nights a year going out, small talking, taking people to dinner, whatever I could to build a book of business. And then at that time, my first big case hit, and it involved TransUnion. I won't bore you with the details of it, but let's just say that it was about $30 million. And then about 2 months later, toppled another one for about $50 million. And as I told my wife at the time, honey, we're out of debt.
What a story though. But that's the grind that it takes, like the risk reward that you've got to be able to see. And I didn't know that you did that, and it took so long, but I couldn't imagine the sleepless nights, the wife, the pregnant, and just the fight that it took.
Yeah. Probably the last loan that I could get from anyone was in April of 2012. I borrowed money to pay taxes, which is the worst kind of money to borrow, because when you're also borrowing money to live on, which I was doing at the time, that I was paying interest on too, that still counts as income. So you owe tax on it.
Well, you made the biggest bet that you can ever make, and that was on yourself.
It was all on me, right? I always say, when your back's against the wall, what choice do you have but to succeed, right? You're never going to call it quits. What a
good story. And what was that like when y'all actually did they wire that money into your account?
Well,
what was that like the next day?
The more fun part about it is you actually get a check. And so I have a picture of a lot of these from over the years where, some of these big memory item things that you have and you remember, and you get little mementos. And I went through a series of years where we used to make these crystal trophies of all the 7-figure settlements. So when you came into our conference room, you were surrounded by hundreds of trophies of the businesses that you had taken down or held accountable for what they had done. But those were incredible memories, and it was. It was a changing time. I mean, when I settled that second case, we were up in New York mediating it, and I almost didn't go because I had just made a little bit of money, gotten out of debt before the second one hit, and the mediator was $50,000 on that case. It ended up being worth it, right? But I was thinking, I don't know that they're going to settle. And, but I ended up flying my wife, my daughter, and my son up there to celebrate in New York with us, got them a limo to pick them up at the airport. And it was one of those things where, you had been working for that day for 10 years and then boom, the turnaround. And of course I started off with a salary, but that time where you're taking all that risk, you're going, how's it going to end out? Are these cases going to settle before I run out of money? Because you can work your ass off, but you can't always force the final day. Right?
Do you feel like through your career that you have done a lot of work and put in a lot of effort? Well, the pay structure on a lawyer is you put in the time. You bet on yourself every time. So do you feel that you've put in all this time and the rewards are – they're just spaced out.
They are. And especially, back then I was doing a lot of, big picture mass tort kind of litigation where, I've worked on cases that take 10 years. And by the end of that 10 years, you've got $1 million, $2 million invested in the case and no guarantee that it's actually going to work out. And 500, 1,000 people counting on you. And I've been able to be lead counsel, federally appointed lead counsel in what they call multi-district litigations, where you're acting as kind of de facto person who's building up the case for everyone who's been injured by a particular drug in the country. And you're committing to that process, whether it takes 3 years or 10, you're in.
You're in. And you're the guy.
And your wallet's in too, right? And so those are things. It's big investment, big work, and we don't get paid unless we win.
So how important was your work with Mr. Watts that you did? Was it Watts? Mm-hmm. How much did you learn there to help you to where you eventually went?
I mean, a ton, right? I probably couldn't state it artfully enough to tell what it's like to have someone who you're working with who is so incredibly good at what they do.
A mentor.
Right. And it was funny. I had no business being there, but like 2 weeks into starting the firm, I'm still trying to get some stuff to work on. He's thrown me a few little small scraps to help me out. And he was like, hey, we're trying a case in Dallas. Why don't you fly up with me and try it? And so I was like, I don't know anything about it. What the hell? I'm in. So we go up there for 2 weeks. It was this lady. She was quadriplegic as the result of a bad, I'm going to call it a bad accident. Not go into the details of what happened to her. But I remember watching his level of preparation. I would hear sometimes people talking about Michael and be like, oh, he's been lucky. He got this, he got that. And, this case, and everyone sends him this. Well, they did it for a reason, because of the foundation that he started on and the work that he puts into working up a case. Well, I was sitting there, we're working till midnight every night, waking up at 5 a.m., back to court. The level of preparation was amazing. And we go into court one day, and he is cross-examining a neurosurgeon who is an expert for the defendants. And I don't know anything about neurosurgery, right? And I wouldn't have thought he did.
Dad's a doctor.
Yeah, maybe I know a little bit, right? But I kid you not, by the time Michael got done, I felt like he knew more about neurosurgery than the doctor did. It was so masterful and artful. And having been able to sit with him leading up to that, you go, why? Because the dude's working 18 hours a day with meticulous preparation, consuming knowledge, and ready to go. And there's no substitute for the hard work to get you there. It was never luck, right? The outcome was, if winning was possible, the effort was going to make it happen.
Yeah, the preparation on his part. And what a good thing for you to see, to know this is what it takes if I'm going to be at the top of my game.
No.
And that's a good story and a great mentor to have. So while you're over here in San Antonio trying these big cases, I seem to remember numbers in the hundreds of millions on things that y'all had won while you we're there.
Yeah.
We've already determined that you have a couple screws loose because you're willing to send emails out to a guy and take a job for no money. What is going through your mind as a lawyer, the entrepreneur, the business stuff? What's going through your mind at the time where you're about to go tell your wife again, honey, we're going to start our own firm after we've been doing great over here? How does that start taking place?
It was, I had been doing a lot of mass tort litigation, and I would still do plenty of single event stuff, but mostly big catastrophic kind of single event cases. And then on the mass tort side, I was traveling around the country, working out in California, Illinois, working up these big picture cases against pharmaceutical and medical device manufacturers. And I loved it. It was very intellectual work, challenging work, and a lot was riding on it, always, right? Thousands of people, even if they weren't your client, you were responsible for them in a way, in proving the case. And so I enjoyed that. And then I think it was late 2015, there was federal legislation put forth that would have kind of unwound that whole business and your ability to do it, to where what happens is when all the same people have been injured by a same drug, they'll often consolidate it into what's called a multi-district litigation in one court, so that there's efficiencies in working them up. Well, they said that this legislation wanted to decentralize that process, cap the fees that you can make. And of course, to do that kind of work, you're betting millions of dollars, and you're not going to bet $2 million to make $1 million, right? That's not good business.
Was that all pushed by the pharmaceutical companies?
Well, they have better lobbies than the trial lawyers do. So yeah, I mean, they were a fan of this idea. And at the time it was very scary, the thought that you sign your name on that piece of paper and I'm out of business, in addition to all the people who are going to be screwed over by what you did. It didn't end up going through, but it was a wake-up call for me that I was doing one thing and I was doing it well, but the federal government could take it away overnight. That felt risky. And so that just got me kind of thinking about what else might be out there, what might I want to do. And then so later in 2016, there was a very prominent trial lawyer in the state of Texas, 12 offices across the state, who passed away December of 2016. And I was in the parking lot of Bass Pro Shop on New Year's or Christmas Eve, like any good dad, ready to go in and buy Christmas gifts for my kids.
Early, right? Early.
Way in advance. I didn't wait.
About 7:30 on Christmas Eve.
That's right. I had a couple hours left. And so I was there ready to buy gifts for my kids. And that had just happened the week before. And I'd been thinking about it, and called a dear friend of mine who was a big lawyer up in Dallas, and was like, hey, do you, and I had hung out with the lawyer who passed away, like we'd known each other, great dude, big heart, but I also knew he was the only partner in his firm. And so I called my friend up there and was like, hey, do you know anyone like his in the family, or what's going to happen to the firm? And my first thought was, I could take the skill sets that I had built helping people on a volume basis over to the single event space in car wrecks, and that would be a great diversification. And so that's where it started out. I was thinking about maybe there was an opportunity to take over this practice and go. And of course, that ended up fizzling out, but it got me down the path.
And you gave it a shot, just like sending the dang emails. You made the call, and that's so important for people. Like, if you have a thought that you want to try something, just do it.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine says, some will, some won't, so what? And anytime I'm even hesitant about calling or doing anything, and it's booking guests on this podcast deal, I'm like, some will
say no,
some won't, so what? I don't care. So you reached out to them, that fizzled out.
It did, like we got some initial back and forth, and then things got messy. This estate got in the way. It was clear that it was going to be kind of a dead end. But as part of that process, I had met some of his employees and people, had learned a thing or two, and I was thinking, this is really probably a good thing. So that starts in December of 2016, and then thought about it for a few months, met some people, and then in June I decided, and I'd never worked a small car wreck before, I decided that I would launch an office doing just that.
Small car wrecks.
Small car wrecks. I mean, we would take big ones too, but the plan was to take everything that I had, everything that I could borrow, leverage it, and go in a big way, because a big person and name in the industry, there was now a void. So there was an opportunity, and it was a finite one. It was either jump or lose. And so the fact that I didn't know what I was doing, particularly in that space, I knew personal injury, I knew volume. I just hadn't done a lot of the single event, small car wreck stuff. And so from that lawyer who passed away, I was able to hire about a half a dozen people away from his office.
So you didn't just tiptoe into starting your own business at all.
No,
you dove in.
So we spent 30 days trying to get the office ready. In our first week of being open, I spent 6 figures in marketing.
Just let's go.
Man, I tell you the funniest thing. And
what was the wife saying at this point?
If you're going to be on TV, please don't do it in San Antonio. Which I've now broken.
Yeah,
but,
you did good at hiding out of San Antonio for a long time.
Right. We, tried to stay under the radar with that. But it was, one of those things where we're there trying to get some systems and processes together. And there was so much that I didn't know and that I'd never experienced before. And there's no substitution for effort. I mean, our office, they turned off the AC. This was the summer of 2017. They turned off the AC at 6 p.m. in the building. And I would stay there till midnight every night with a bead of sweat rolling down the side of my face, working, because there was just no other option, right? We were going to do something I had never done, had to prepare.
I've got a question right here that says, what was the first office like on day one? And were there customers? So you had no customers.
None.
You hired a handful of lawyers on salary.
Yes.
Holy shit.
And I rented furniture.
Holy
and subleased some space, hired a marketing company. And the first day we pulled up to the office, our rented furniture was getting assembled. And I was like, well, I guess while they're finishing, maybe we'll go to Office Depot and like buy a printer and some highlighters and stuff, because we're going to need that for an office.
What a good story.
And it was crazy. So like I spent the next 30 days learning and doing. I had never operated a business as an owner.
You had never taken a phone call from marketing and turned that into a message to hand to a lawyer.
Nope.
You hadn't even done that system.
Nope. I'd done none of it. I'd done none of it. I didn't know how to get health insurance for someone. I Googled it because I told the staff that I was going to provide health insurance for everybody. So I had to figure out how to get that. I had run payroll before in other companies, but it was just like these little online kind of things where you could do like paystub.com, whatever. And so I had to figure out how to do it all. I mean, day one, I was IT, I was phone systems, I was marketing, I was accounting. It was everything. And there's no replica for that, because there's not a corner of my business that I don't know and doesn't have my fingerprint on it, because you had to, right?
Man, I did not know that. And dude, that's great, because that's what it takes. And in my preconceived notion, I know you pretty well, but my preconceived notion goes, well, there's Ryan on the billboard. He just, he's done good and he's hit it. Well, that's not the truth.
No.
You started from the ground up with rented office furniture. You've gambled your life savings twice to do this.
Yeah. My wife said yes again. So either she's a glutton for punishment or a brave risk taker. I'm not sure which one.
These poor ladies that have to put up with us entrepreneurs, right? I've put my house on the line for a huge deal before, and thank God it paid off.
She's told me no more new businesses, right?
Well, you should probably listen this time.
Yeah, well, we'll see. But I tell you, man, those early days were crazy. Like I didn't have, I was living in San Antonio and had decided I would open a business in Dallas doing something I had never done before with employees that I had not had a work history with and had known for a couple of months.
That's another point to drive home on your story is Ryan lived in San Antonio at the time, and he opens a business in Dallas knowing nobody. How many trips did you make in a car?
So not a whole lot. I know I did fly a lot.
Southwest.
I every security person at the airport from 2017 until COVID was like a personal friend on the Christmas card list. I was up every Monday morning, back every Tuesday night, spent Wednesday with the family, flew out Thursday morning, came back Friday night, always first flight of the day, Monday and Thursday. So I was out between 5:10 and 6:10 a.m. and then getting home, after 8 p.m. each night.
As this story goes on, it is clearly obvious why you are successful. It's extremely obvious. And if you're going to get on a level of success that, somebody, one of your idols is, or a big lawyer or a big car dealership guy, this is the kind of shit it takes. Yeah. There's no free ride.
There's none. I've always said, I've rarely had the blessing of walking into a room and being the smartest guy, but I've always walked into every room in every case or whatever I was doing, knowing I could look at whoever was across the table and say, I will outwork you.
Yeah.
And will not beat me with effort.
I feel the same way. I'll be up in the morning, we'll go to work, and I'm not stopping until it's done. But talk to us. We've kind of learned that your journey as to how you got, what do you call it? Lion law?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been thinking about this for the past couple of days. I have a point that I want to start doing on some of the podcasts called, dang it, where is it at? We'll find it. But, one of the questions that I hate or comments is people say, hey, Ryan, you know what you should do? And they tell you what you would do. So as this podcast goes on, while we're thinking about it, if you think about it, come up with a, hey, Tommy, you know what you should do. But one of the things that I was thinking, because he's Ryan the Lion, I was like, why didn't you name it like Ryan the Mangy Chihuahua?
Well, so let's start here. I cannot take credit for it. No one had ever called me Ryan the Lion in my entire life, obviously, before I decided to start a firm that was, foundationally a marketing firm for businesses, for getting business and clients in, as opposed to previously, I had done a lot of networking to get referral business. And so there was groups that I had worked with, though, in the mass tort space that did marketing. So I hired one to consult to come up with some concepts and things that we could do to put out there on TV, radio, billboards, because I was committing, I was going to go in and be spending 6 figures a week on marketing until we succeeded or ran out of money. No stop.
That question is in my question journal of what y'all do spend on marketing, which you can tell us later. I'm very interested on what some of these guys spend on this, and it's got to be a huge number. And you said something else that I like is you just labeled yourself a marketing firm.
Yeah.
And you are a mass marketing machine. And so I haven't heard that before. And so I like that. You come out, you start with the mass marketing. And when does this ball of your effort and your rented office, when does this start going, oh shit, we're onto something?
Yeah. It's funny because when the guy said, we were trying to come up with some kind of a concept or something. And so we sit down in a room, and I've got a notebook on the table as they're about to pitch some of the ideas for marketing. And it says the Lion Law Firm on it. And I sit down and I was like, I guess this is just some generic thing they're going to pitch me. And so I opened it up and I was like, so what's this Lion Law Firm thing? They were like, it's you. And I was like, what do you mean it's me? And they were like, Ryan Thompson is so forgettable and so common. We need something sticky. You're going to be Ryan the Lion. And I was like, you're fucking fired. Okay. What are you talking about? I'm not going to do that. No one will like that. That doesn't work. And they were like, it's sticky and it's memorable and it's got all this thematic stuff. And so for the first 2.5 years, candidly, that I ran commercials, you can go back and look at them. They're all on YouTube. You'll never hear me say Ryan the Lion because I thought it was dumb. I even ran 3 focus groups with some of the best jury consultants around the country for every one of them to come back and like that concept better than anything I could come up with or preview to them. So that gave me a pretty good indicator that they were probably onto a something that would work, resonate with people, and be memorable. And then I even went further. I mean, in the very first year that we did it, Dallas has 600 buses that run across North Texas. I put my face on the side of 150 of them for 6 months. Right. And so you're hemorrhaging money, but I'm trying to establish a brand quickly while there was an opportunity to carve out a space for us in the market. Because I knew once we represented someone, we were going to hire elite people to do well, to take care of them and ensure that there would be a good outcome. But you got to get them in the door before you can help them.
And have there been times when you're advertising like crazy, and is there peaks and valleys where you're like, man, this is just, it's not working like I want? Or because 150 buses is a shit ton of money, where they're like, no, I saw your name on the bus, that's why we're calling.
No, the buses cost more than my house at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, you're putting everything out there. And so sometimes, I mean, there are ups and downs, or you pull a lever and it doesn't work. And so it's always trying to track what's getting the phone to ring, what's affecting your cost per contract. And the hard thing on some of that is you've got to pull the lever slow so you don't create noise in the data where you can't figure out what's working for you.
I've been meeting with some pretty high-level marketing guys that they spend a fortune, and they keep going back to it, that people, they say, well, we spend money on this. We think this is a great idea. And not jack shit happens. We think this is an okay idea, and it just hits. And so it seems to me like the general consistency on the marketing is actually that they don't 100% know what's going to happen. And some things that they're guarantee doesn't work. And other things are just, they run out of the park.
Oh yeah. You know, in the personal injury space, I mean, you drive around town, you see billboards of people advertising for what we do everywhere. It's hyper competitive.
Yeah.
And so finding differentiators or things that make you memorable are important. And then of course, where do you need to be? You know, back in the day where guys like us grew up watching Jim Adler, who's a friend of mine now and a dear sweet man. He's not meaner than a junkyard dog. He's actually kind and polite and a good human. But you know, you see all of this, but they were working at a time, and of course he still is, where TV was the source. Right. They were going to be on TV. No one else was doing it, and that was the way. And what do we have today? We have TV, we have YouTube, we have Hulu, we have Netflix, we have OTT, we have Google Local Services, pay-per-click, organic. We have radio, we have billboards, we have digital billboards.
Yeah.
I mean, every kind of thing that you can imagine is out there. And so I came out of law school with no business education, worked for somebody else, and then when I actually started my own firm, we had to be professional marketers and professional lawyers all at once.
Yeah, and that's what was running through my brain is like, you are a professional marketer. Do y'all have your own marketing team in-house now, or are y'all still sending stuff out?
We do both. You know, the partnership with the guys who came up with the concept is still tremendous. So they run all of our TV here in Texas. I'm flying out 2 weeks from now to Georgia to film some commercials in Atlanta, because we're opening an office in Atlanta here pretty soon. You know, we just opened our Phoenix, Arizona office a couple of weeks ago, and we're trying to hire a lawyer out in LA so we can open our California office here in a couple months.
That is incredible.
So it's crazy.
That's incredible. And that leads me to a question that I love asking, that I usually ask at the end, but we're not stopping yet because I'm having too much fun. What would you tell yourself at 20 years old? What would be your advice now to yourself?
Man, you know, I think there's only really one thing that matters in business, and that's go forward. And the way that I look at it, I remember, because I bet everything, and I borrowed money when I started this firm in 2017. In June of 2019, I had $47,000 left in the bank. I had run through everything. I was accruing interest at a rate of about $250,000 a month on what I had borrowed. And I had payroll and rent coming up on the 1st. And I decided that, we had a bunch of cases in. Some of the marketing was going well, that we needed to reorg the way that we were operating in order to provide better service and do our jobs just better overall. And my brother looked at me and he was like, "Are you sure right now is the right time?" And I said, "It's now or never, man.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to have to make it happen." And so we went right into doing that. And I look at business, there are things that you can control and there are things that you cannot control. And if it's truly something that I cannot control, I don't stress about it. I don't think about it because I'm not going to affect it. Mm-hmm. There's nothing I can do about it. If a new competitor's coming in, am I going to worry about, are they going to hurt my business? I can't stop them. Mm-hmm. I can only control what I can do. And so when you focus in life in that black and white and say, what are the things in my business that I can control? And are those going to affect outcome? Then it's just about how much effort are you going to put into them, and are you going to surround yourself with great people that allow the outcome to be certain? Have I ever been afraid of failure? Fuck no. Yeah. Because failure was either humanly possible or not. And if it was humanly possible, I was going to do everything it took to make it happen.
Yeah,
period.
That's a good analogy, a real good analogy.
Well, so over the next 60 days, double-digit revenue increase
is what you told your brother.
Yeah, so my brother's Princeton undergrad, Wharton Business School, and he's our CEO.
And y'all been working together since you started?
He came about a year into the firm when he was pretty confident that I was unlikely to go bankrupt. The marketing part was working, and he was helping, moonlighting me from day one. Mm-hmm. A fantastic financial mentor for me. He's so smart with numbers and good at a lot of the things that I'm not good with. Of course, if you want to succeed, you have to find people who are good at the things you're not good at too.
I've got about 200 employees and not doing near the revenue you are, but man, you have to find those people to put that stuff in place. And what a good thing to have your brother, because you can trust everything that they're doing.
Completely. I mean, the best feeling in the world, right? And he lived in Dallas. So when he came to work full time and I would come home to San Antonio on my Wednesday, I still knew that, one of us was there at the helm, mm-hmm. helping to drive things. But, it was truly phenomenal. From June of 2019, almost running out of money, February of 2020, I made my very first payment against my debt. And by December of 22, we were debt free, rolling and just off to the races. And it was, and I won't even, maybe I'll tell you a little bit. It was over $20 million that we paid back in that period of time. And when you have that kind of debt load and no one will loan you money against a business that doesn't have assets, right? Like I have clients.
You have furniture.
Not assets, right? You don't want my computer.
Yeah.
So you're paying interest that's outrageous.
Yeah.
And so, but that's what it took. And so I just decided this was a risk I'm willing to take. And if we need to start over, then we'll start over, right? Like, I know how to make okay money no matter what, even if I'm working for somebody else. That just never scared me because I felt like failure was controllable.
Yeah. Man, that's great. How often do you and your brother cross paths and look at each other and go, man, I can't believe we're doing this shit?
I think he's thankful that I'm dumb and willing to take risks and that he can do math to keep us out of the real trouble.
I tell people that I'm just stupid enough to do it.
That's right. Right.
I'm just dumb enough to try
That's
it.
right. Like, and like kind of our wink and nod thing now, whenever we're thinking about doing something that sounds truly ambitious or crazy or out there, I'll look at him and just be like, but we can afford it? He's like, yes. I'm like, let's go.
You get one of the things I'm learning though as we get older is you analyze these things because of all of your failures that you've had. We don't fail, we learn, right? So everything that we have messed up or misstepped on, when we look at a new opportunity, whatever it is, you and your brother are looking at it from so many different angles where you're like, nah, this does check all the boxes. Right. So let's run with it.
Your lens becomes so much different in what you can focus in on and see. Because I always joke with people at my firm because we take very seriously training and growing and really investing in our people to make them better at what they do, both for them and for the benefit of our client. But it's one of those things where when you're out there and you're working and you're trying to do good, I say anything that you might think that I am good at or that we are good at as a firm, I promise you was born on the back of a prior abject failure of mine.
Yeah.
And so I know the two paths not to take, and we're going down this one because we worked our way there. Like, you will fail. You will have setbacks. They will only be fatal if you allow them to be. And that's it. And it helps you spot the things going forward of going, hey, let's go open a law firm in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I've only been to Georgia a couple times in my life.
Well, it'll work out.
Yeah.
You'll be I bet the advertising on the buses in Atlanta is a little bit less than Dallas.
We're about to find out.
But you're going to find out.
Yeah,
I mean, opening a new office, what is if you're going to open a new law firm with the type of marketing you do, if you're going to Scottsdale, Arizona, what does that take?
So, I mean, first of all, we start very simply. You know, we budget it out and map out what we think is going to happen based on prior experience, as far as what are we going to need for a simple office build out, when are we going to start marketing, when are we going to need to hire, when do we need to bring people on over the course of it. And so I'm projecting what the first 3 years of that place is going to look like before I have a lease.
And do you have people in your organization that their only job is to go start these new offices? Or how involved in it are you?
Well, we do now. You know, this is like in Texas, it was easier for us because we could move people around. But now that we're trying to expand out of state, it is getting people to go look and find good office space for us. Ideally, something small in a building that has some vacancy that gives us a right of first refusal to grow into spaces around us before someone else can lease it.
Again, that point is because you've already outgrown a spot and you know that if we're going to grow here, we need room. Right. Or you're moving again.
Which is a total pain.
Yeah.
And then if you need to move again and you haven't built something into your lease that allows you to get out early or move to an adjacent floor if there's space, you're stuck trying to sublet a spot that you can no longer work in, or moving your workforce into two different buildings or something really undesirable like that. So the planning of what are we going to become, or what do I hope this can be, starts before you even do a lease, because you might put yourself into a 5-year total screw job if you do make your plan happen, right? If you succeed, you will outgrow your space. You got to plan for it. What is
a marketing, if we're going to Scottsdale, what are you going to throw at an office? $5 million to get started?
I mean, with marketing dollars, more than that. But, you know, as far as starting up an office, I would say
that's not that much.
That's the cheap part.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. I mean, the cost of furniture has gone up. Sometimes it's crazy to me, but you may have a 6-figure investment that you can, you know, capitalize and write off for getting furniture and dressing out a space. And we don't do anything over the top. I don't believe in looking like you have some big fancy office. We're here to work for the people and do good, not look like a bunch of fancy jerks.
And
so
not interested in buying the office building and staying there, always renting.
Man, my Dallas office, I've had a right of first offer on that building since 2017. I asked her again 2 weeks ago if she's going to sell it to me. She won't. But you know, at the end of the day, sometimes that can make a ton of sense for people, and we have not had just the right opportunity with the right place. Like, I love where we're at in Dallas. We just took over, signed a lease last week to take over the 5th floor of that building, so we'll be 50% occupants of the building that we're in there, and I guess that puts us at about 40,000 square feet of space in our headquarters in Dallas.
How many employees are y'all running?
I know we hired 7 this week. And so I think we're closing in on about 200 employees now. And it, you know, it's funny. I no longer am involved in HR. I used to be the head interviewer, but now I look at it from a budget perspective, really, of, you know, kind of what are these top and bottom line numbers and everything by category, and have good people.
It's interesting, the job positions that you start working yourself out of necessity.
Right.
You just can't be there.
You know, you used to want to be notified about everything, right?
Yes.
So when you had ceded control to someone who had proven themselves capable and good at what they're doing, and you feel good about that, and then you stay in the loop. And there's always some things that you stay in the loop on, but then there's others where you know, sometimes, how do I usually find out about a new hire? Well, I get the Monday morning email welcoming to the firm with their picture.
That's just the way it goes. My favorite saying, one of my business partners, he retired from Austin PD about 6 months ago, and he invested in Beer House 8 years ago. So we've been talking about him working and working, and we've been wanting him to come on, but the retirement's good, and business is business. He's not an entrepreneur. Well, now he is. But my favorite thing that he tells me is like, he goes, dude, don't worry about it. I got it handled. You know what? I'm not even going to tell you. I'll just take care of it. And I'm like, thank you, Zamora. That's all I need to know.
That's the best kind of work and business partner, right? The one who, when they say they got it handled,
yeah,
it's handled.
Yeah, those guys are priceless. And to employees out there, if you want to make your boss really happy, just start telling them, hey, man, don't worry about it. I got it handled. And then take care of it. Those guys are priceless.
It's so nothing drives me crazier than having to follow up.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a nag. I don't want to manage you. I want people who are self-starters, who get the job done, and then at most, update me about it.
That's it. Hey, it's taken care of and done.
That's right.
I don't want to ask 3 times if this has gotten taken care of, because it takes up our brain space.
It does. You have to keep it on your radar, thinking
Yeah.
about it. You know whatever you're doing. If you're building a new restaurant, that you've got to pull your permits. You've got to put this thing in. You've got to make sure you're vented out for your cooking area.
Yeah.
Somewhere to get rid of your oil. Right? There's 1,000 things to go on, and you're capable because you have done them all.
Yeah.
But when you have someone who can take some of those off and you don't have to worry about them,
It takes a lot.
that's the person, right?
Yeah.
That's who you want helping you do those things. And I always say, who are the people who rise up in a business? The people who make it fucking undeniable that they deserve it.
Yeah.
How do they do that? Initiative, accountability, delivering.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you don't fail, but it means that you get up and do every day.
Mm-hmm. That's key. So you've got some offices going in Atlanta and Scottsdale, Phoenix, and that's going on at the same time.
In Los Angeles.
So you are crazy.
Very.
3 offices at one time.
Yeah.
So what?
Technically in a 60-day succession. So we spaced it out.
Great.
We spaced it out.
So what are your future goals with Lion Law? Where are you trying to take this? Do you have an aiming point, or is it let's just keep going and going?
I always say as long as you can continue to do good and create positivity for both your employees and the people that you represent, then let it go where it will. I've never been one when I'm chasing something in business that I think about the outcome, the financial outcome. Mm-hmm. I don't chase that. I always say if you chase money, you'll just end up getting some, and then you'll want more, and it'll be hollow, and you will realize quite quickly. I've been a happy broke man, and I've been a wealthy man who's been sad, just like the rest of us have experienced. Money will never cure that, but if you are building good things to provide value for other people, like that makes you wake up excited in the morning. I've never not wanted to go to work. Yeah. In fact, the counter problem, I'll wake up at 3 a.m. to go to the bathroom, get excited about something at work, and be in the office at 4 a.m., right? Some would call that a sickness, my wife, for example. But, like when you love what you do, it's not work. And when you get to bring other people in and raise them up and watch them grow up, I've had more than 6 paralegals over my career who I've hoped to get through law school, become lawyers to come work with me. We got another one who's about to come back from law school, and it's just so fun to watch that and spread that.
We have college students that start working in the restaurant, and then they come up and they work in our organization. And that's what you're doing with paralegals and that team, dude, the teamwork and the way that works it's like magic.
Oh, it's fun, right? Because watching other people grow up and really blossom and become amazing is just like the coolest thing in the world to do. Mm-hmm. And I would say when you build something and you start something, it's always about the mission and what are you doing. And my philosophy in my business is very simple. What do I want to do? I want to do good. Mm-hmm. And that goes across the gamut from my employees to the people that we represent. And if I wake up every day and I'm doing that, well, then I just like to do more of it, mm-hmm. right? And it starts at one little block. And sometimes people see success or building something big as a destination, and it's not. It's a process. And if you want to be good at anything, it's a never ending process. Because just like in your restaurants or in my law firm, if I'm doing the same thing I'm doing today, 10 years from now, we'll probably be out of business. So you got to constantly reinvent yourself. Like, your restaurants are the coolest concepts in the world. Like, they're beautiful architecturally, from the landscape to everything in them. They're neat. You want to be there, right? But if you quit doing that and let the paint look nasty and didn't put cool stuff in, like, it feels like a vacation going to one of your places, right? So you know the importance of concept and reinventing and doing things that are unique and different. But you didn't get there day one, right?
No.
I mean, I've watched you build these things, and shit goes wrong, and you're tearing up a foundation and putting in new stuff, right? Like, it is a process that you have to commit to. It's not overnight that, like, Miguel's is a great, popular bar in Lubbock doing well. That was a hell of a lot of work to get there.
Oh man, it was. I think our next episode has a bunch of Miguel's in it.
Yeah,
and it was. But it's the entrepreneur, businessman, the type A personality. I don't feel like our job is ever done.
It's not.
And so when I ask you where our aiming point is, it's not like you probably really don't want your face all over all the billboards. It's just kind of a necessary thing for marketing. And
it's so funny that you say that, because I always joke around that I like to live a low profile life where no one knows me, no one recognizes me, and my wife and I can go out to dinner and just enjoy each other, which doesn't sound right for someone who's also putting themselves up everywhere. But it's how we do business.
Yeah.
So that's how we do business.
And I'm doing that. That's kind of the same thing with the podcast thing. I like to go, I don't even wear beer house shirts in the restaurants. I don't want anybody to know who I am. But this is a marketing opportunity with what we're doing. And I want to see what opportunities become available because of this.
That's right.
And so it's interesting to see, but I don't think the work's ever done as an entrepreneur. And
no, it's not. And if you're having fun, why would you stop it?
Yeah.
And if you have good people who are growing and taking over things that you used to do, it's creating opportunities for other along the way as well. Like, Atlanta wasn't waking up one morning going, man, I really want to open an office in Atlanta. I knew I had ambition to go outside the state, but the guys who I do the marketing with used to work for the number one player in Georgia. His kids started taking over. They transitioned the business out of the way from the guys that I'm using here. Mm-hmm. And they said, Atlanta's a fantastic market, and we have 20 years of data on it. And it just opened up. I said, well, when do you want to start?
Well, so you called your brother.
Do some math. We're going there this summer.
Yeah, right? We'll get there. Man, I had a good question. I forgot what it was. What else is new? Atlanta will be good. We wish you luck over there for sure, and everywhere else. So are we going to have to see your sign like the whole way down I-10?
God willing, we'll end up spreading there. I made jokes in the early days because I've never had like a mission for what does final look like, because you'll never actually hit that, right? It's like it
always moves. The goalpost always moves.
It moves. So, like, don't make financial goals. Do good goals, and you'll find something rewarding to grow and do every day. But like I always tell people around the office, like your ambition should be just to be a little better than you were yesterday, and then see where that takes you. Right. And it may not even be with me. Like, I've had employees that I love that worked with me where my best advice to them was time to go chase a new opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's your thing now. And so for me, it was, I would joke around like, hey, one day I'm going to have a Chicago office and we're going to blow all the way over to LA. Did I ever really think that I'd be opening an LA office this year? I mean, not really. And it wasn't the goal. It was just to do good. And I love the word good because so many people think that launching a business or succeeding or being good at it requires perfection. And I just tell people that is a false goal. It's not even achievable in humans.
It's not.
No one is perfect, so don't shoot for that. And if you wait for that level of confidence or good to launch, you never will.
And that's what stops a lot of people from working for themselves. They overthink everything instead of just jumping in.
I say sometimes you just have to be a solid B plus or a B, and have the gut feeling to go and realize that excellence in business is being very good at a lot of things, not shooting for perfection, because otherwise you'll just keep tinkering on stuff that doesn't matter and consuming yourself with feelings of failure while you're doing great.
Yeah.
So go be very good, go be great, knowing that in every category you can't be everyone, but if you're constantly trying to build to create this evolution within yourself and those around you, every year you're going to level up in every category, and you're going to look back at 2 years from now at where you were and go, holy shit, like 2 years ago me would say today there is perfect, right? Still not the goal, but like those are the kind of leaps and bounds you make by just trying a little more every day.
Yeah. Where do you spend most of your daily task? Are you working on law deals, or are you focusing on growing your business? What percentage is spent where doing what?
So I don't practice law as much as I used to these days. I would consider.
Does that mean at all?
I have no cases of which I am primarily responsible for, so
great.
Maybe that's a fair answer.
Yeah.
But I would consider myself a very experienced internal legal consultant, right? Because I have done some of the biggest cases in the United States, certainly within the state of Texas, and I have a ton of tremendous experience from that. And I have a lot of brilliant lawyers who work with me. So what do I do when they have big or complicated cases or things that they're working on? They come on, we talk about it, we run through it, give some direction. Hey, we're going to go try this. Tap me in. I'm in for it. We're going to go mediate this big case. Let's roll. I know all of those people. Let's go get what the client deserves. And so while I don't maintain primary responsibility on a day-to-day for everything anymore, I still have my hand in it. Yeah. And a bunch of other things as well. But a lot of mine is just, directional vision and growth. What do we need to get there? And then really empowering the next generation of people within the firm to be better than I was at the things that I had been doing on a daily basis so that we can continue to go out and do good.
Yeah. That's a great leader. And from the outside looking in, that you fit in that category. And it looks like you're oiling all of the wheels in the business that need the grease, and just kind of massaging it and nurturing it, to keep it going where it needs to go.
I always tell people it's a lot more fun if you have people who are on the mission and ride with you.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you were really doing it all on your own, you couldn't.
No.
Right? Like you would be, okay, I'm your yard man and I cut your yard by myself. But if you want to take that from one mower to a bunch of trucks, like some of us have done, right? It's going to require bringing in other people who can do the thing too, and giving them opportunity to grow and learn. And it makes it a lot more fun when everybody's in the trenches rowing the same way with a common vision and goal. It's just cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, again, I guess we could wrap this up. I appreciate hearing your story.
It was fun to be here, man.
I hope that the people that hear this story, whether they know you or don't know you, hear what you've gone through and done, because it is an incredible story. Nobody handed you anything. You have gambled big time on yourself and your team. And for those that don't know, Ryan is in, I thought it was 8 different cities, but it's going to be 11 different cities.
There we go.
Producing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. The website says 1.8 billion.
It's 1.9 now.
That is just a phenomenal amount. It takes a lot of work to do that.
And I always say, like, and I mean this, I'm such a small little part of it now, right? It's about the team and the good that everybody does. But to get there, you have to start somewhere, right? When I started working with Watts, he had multi billions, and I always looked at him just drive in like a new car and thought, how could I ever not buy a used car, right? But if you worry about that, you'll lose the forest through the trees, chase the mission, put in the work, and good things will come. And if they don't, you tried and you probably still did all right.
And all of that starts, if you're going to be a lawyer, you better be kicking ass in law school.
Do your deals.
That is where it sounds like it starts. And shake hands, meet all those people, and get your grades. So if you're going to screw off, do it in college.
Yes.
Don't do it in law school.
Do not do it in law school.
No, it's time to step up your game when you get there.
Yeah, because learning from great lawyers, like any business, right? Having a mentor. And if you go out on your own, who's your mentor? Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
that's a good one, though.
It's not bad,
Yeah.
right? It's where we start most of the time.
Are y'all guys recruiting out of college anywhere? Or y'all just looking for seasoned trial lawyers?
I hire kids out of high school, right? I've had people come in as a receptionist, move up to a legal assistant, become a paralegal, move all through the ranks. So we take people from everywhere. Obviously, we love hiring great lawyers. We generally don't hire that often out of law school. But hey, if you got ambition and are willing to bust your ass, come make a case for it.
Or send Ryan a postcard 2 or 3 times in 60 days, and you'll probably call.
Hey, one of the guys who I do a ton of referral business with, you know how he got all that business from me?
How?
He showed up in my lobby one day and waited till I walked by to go to the bathroom.
That's great.
And then he introduced himself to me, right? We've been friends almost 8 years now, and we do business together. Tremendous guy. What did he do? He went and made the ask. Hey, I'd love to work with you on some stuff. And I was like, what? Who are you? What are you doing here? All right, why the hell not?
Yeah.
Right? And did he catch me on a good day? I don't know. But if you don't try, I promise you, your dream will stay with you when you're asleep if you don't do anything while you're awake.
That it will. So. That it will. Well, Ryan has to get out of here. He's the first guest to fly in for my podcast, which for me is a dream come true. Yeah. We're in the airplane hangar, as you can hear behind us. And for me to be able to sit at this table and talk about business and share aviation is my dream. And y'all were the first ones to come in, and it was awesome. I hope we got good video of it. And, but it was fun. So we'll go get Skiba from his break. That's Ryan's pilot, who's a great guy.
Tremendous.
He's been flying several times a week from Bernie to Dallas for years.
Oh yeah. Every week, we rarely take a week off, and now we're doing even more fun flights out to LA and Atlanta and things that we had never dreamed about doing.
Did you like airplanes before you started using it as a tool?
I always thought they were cool, but for me, flying was a necessity because when the world shut down for COVID, I had to get to my office in Dallas.
Yeah.
And so I became a student pilot and started flying a Cirrus with Jeff because that was the cheapest way I could do it at the time, as I was still working my way out of debt. And so I just fell in love with it. The first time I flew an airplane with him, I was like, I'm going to do this a lot.
And he's so good. He's just calm. He's great. And you're still a student pilot, right?
Yes.
So Ryan has all these accolades for top lawyer, top this, top that. But what they don't know about him is he is the highest houred student pilot.
World record holder.
Yeah. And I haven't flown with him in a while, but when we were in the Cirrus, he's a great pilot, shoots ILSs, does whatever you want.
All the things.
Student pilot. So a good student is always learning.
Yeah, well over 1,000 hours, man. You just gotta. I can't take the time off of work to go get the check ride done. It's too much of an investment of my time.
That's great. Well, keep up all the good work. It's going to be great watching you. I've loved watching your story, and I really appreciate you coming and doing this. It's been a good time.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah.